Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Happy to have you here today. And I'm so happy to welcome our guest, John Calaway,
Hi.
to the podcast. He, of course, is president and executive director of Mission Waco / World. And you spoke to a group the other day and was talking about Creekside. And I really wanted to talk about this amazing project of Mission Waco for addressing the issue of homelessness.
That's right.
Welcome.
Well,
You've
thanks.
not been on the podcast,
I
too.
haven't, so thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, when we were doing Central Texas Living, you were on 2 or 3 times.
That's right.
But of course, Jimmy Dorrell, our wonderful Jimmy and Janet,
That's right.
been on the podcast. But welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Love to share about Creekside. About 3 years ago, I remember the day. It was right after Baylor men won the basketball national championship.
Yeah, I remember that day too.
Yeah, a few weeks after that, Waco started to begin to see a number of these low-income, low-budget motels start to close down. Started with the one that's over by Milo's, the Oak Lodge.
Oh, yeah, it's been totally rebuilt.
Totally rebuilt, looks
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
And when we began to lose those places, those were a lot of places that our folks were staying in. There were weekly rate, nightly rate motels. Really difficult to get into an apartment or housing because it's just become so expensive. We've really kind of outpassed the affordability in McLennan County as far as housing, especially for those that are trying to get up off the streets. And so we began to see these disappear. Rental rates began to just continue to soar. And we had our shelter numbers were going up. And so we said, we can't just sit idly by and not do anything about this. So Jimmy Dorrell, Billy Davis Jr., a few other big donors and influential folks, stakeholders in our city, we all got together and said, what are we going to do? And so we began to look at different properties around town, thinking through different models of what affordable housing would look like. And then we started looking at places around the country, Denver, Seattle, Portland, East Coast.
Really
and
expensive places. to
Very
live.
expensive places, but we were looking at this permanent supportive housing model and what they were doing in those places. And we basically learned what we didn't want to do. We did not want to create housing development where it was free. And so the number one rule at Creekside is everybody pays rent. A part of a handout approach to any social issue is that history has shown us that doesn't really root out the issue. It helps on the surface, but it doesn't actually solve the problem. It makes us maybe feel good about ourselves when we give something away for free, but long term, it doesn't really help solve the issue that we're trying to deal with. And so we went down to Austin, which was just an hour and a half away, and went to a development down there by Mobile Loaves and Fishes called Community First Village. And looking at their model and spending a lot of time with their staff, their volunteers, and certainly the people who called that home, we said, this is the model that works. And it's a proven model down in Austin. And so we said, all right, what's stopping us here? And the answer was just money.
Yeah. All a function of money.
Always a function of money. So long story short, we ended up buying 68 acres right along University Parks, in between University Parks and the Brazos River.
Beautiful
And it's
area.
absolutely gorgeous. And we closed on that property in June of 2023 and then broke ground in October of last year. And here in a couple of weeks, we'll be finally done with water and wastewater to the property. And we'll start to see roads and homes go up pretty soon.
Now, these are small houses.
These
Tiny
are
houses.
very tiny. We
Yeah.
have 3 kinds of homes. You have
Okay.
a studio, which is around that 150 square feet to 200 square feet. So very, very tiny. And those are especially for folks who are very new to housing. And so those units have shared amenities like a community kitchen and an individual centralized bathroom area.
Okay, so they don't have, not necessarily plumbed and all that.
Correct. And
It's more
again,
of a sleeping chamber, really.
it's much nicer than that.
Yeah.
It is each one of these homes are around $50,000, so it's not cheap.
Wow.
These are we
I
want.
used to buy a huge house
I know.
back in the day in Woodway.
I would want your first thought when you drive onto the property to be, I would live here.
Right.
because it's that
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
It's that level of dignity that we
Sure.
think everyone deserves. So that's one kind of home. The other kind of home is around 200 to 280 square feet, and we call that a micro home. And then the third kind of home is a park model home, which is about 400 square feet, fully plumbed. And so there's a range of costs for the lease, so people get to choose which home they would like to live in.
Okay, so it is a monthly thing, or for how long a term do they?
It's permanent if they want it, and
Okay.
it's transitional if they need it. And that's every home. I mean, a lot of us, started out with a starter home, maybe when we first got married, like my wife and I did. And then as soon as we had a kid, we realized this doesn't fit anymore, at
little
least we
tight.
thought.
Yeah.
And so we moved into a bigger house. Then we moved here to Austin, got a bigger house. And so those homes were transitional for us. But also, my home that we live in now, I hope is permanent for me and my wife.
right.
And so for folks who want this to be permanent, it can be. In Austin, the number one reason for people moving out is death, interestingly enough, because the average age is 59. And so you have a lot of people, if you've been on the streets for decades, you
It's
have
hard.
some physical health that it's almost like your body, when it finds this place of rest, is not in survival mode anymore.
Right.
And you just kind of, these bodies relax, and then what happens is health catches up to you. And so when
Hadn't thought
people
of that.
have a place of permanence, it is permanent for many, at least in Austin, and we hope that to be the same. So likely we'll have about a year-long lease. So we ask for a year commitment, and that's for both the missionals that will be living out there, as well as the folks who are coming off the street.
Yeah, so let's talk about the missionals. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? Is it like a house parent or something,
No,
or what?
it's a friend.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to describe it. It's a good neighbor, but it's someone who has not struggled with homelessness, that's from middle or upper middle class, socioeconomically speaking. And so, they will own their own park model home, and they'll just pay us a monthly rent to park it in the space that we have for them.
Oh, okay.
So they'll own that. So when they decide to leave, they can sell it to another missional family, or they can take it with them and stick it on their own property. So they'll own those. They'll buy them themselves. But they become a part of the ecosystem of support and care. So it could be giving a ride to the grocery store, but it also could be just sitting and listening to someone's story and about how they're going through a tough time. And how they've had an argument with a brother the other day. So it's just a lot of being a friend, being a good neighbor. It's intentionally living out our faith alongside of folks that have seen significant struggle in their life. And so it's not just a bunch of staff caring for people. It's regular, everyday people that are just loving other folks. My sister and brother-in-law and their 4 kids, they're both educators in the Austin area. They have done this at our model, Community First. So all 6 of them have lived in a 400 square foot park model home. Yes, they are as crazy as it sounds. And they've done that for almost 10 years. So they've been missionals. And it's been a phenomenal experience raising their kids in that environment. And so I've got personal experience to attest to how transformational it can be for the folks who, are coming in usually thinking they're going to help in some way,
Yeah.
but yet they end up receiving help and they're transformed in the process. And that's sort of that mutual helping of one another. This is not as much as transactional as most of us would think. It's not just about somebody coming in and helping somebody. It's you living there and becoming a friend and walking alongside folks struggling, because we're all struggling. And in the process, you lift each other up. That's kind of what the missional is.
Well, I love what you say in your material. Housing alone will not end homelessness, but community will. And so that's what really this ambitious project,
Well,
Creekside Community Village,
We
is
really
all about.
believe, you're right, we really believe that the leading cause of homelessness is this profound, catastrophic loss of family, which is why housing alone is not just going to solve homelessness for an individual. It's got to be about community. And so that's what we're trying to create. It's not just a bunch of homes, because we can go put up homes somewhere. Anybody can do that. but it's about fostering community. One of my favorite lines from Mother Teresa was, the most devastating form of poverty is loneliness. The chronic issue of homelessness is perpetuated largely due to isolation. You think about people that struggle with health issues that are on the streets. You know, they don't have somebody in their life that are saying, hey, your head's been hurting for 2 weeks. You may want to go get that checked out.
Yeah.
Or your ankle looks swollen. You may want to go get that checked out.
Yeah,
and so they live with chronic illness, and a lot of times it takes their life.
Sure.
For things that could have been solved if they only had a primary care physician. And so that's why working with Waco Family Medicine is such a strong part of what we already do at Mission Waco with My Brother's Keeper.
It's very close.
Very close,
to where
symbiotic
you
relationship. And, you know, the goal of our own health clinic that we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Mission Waco, is to really get people plugged into the Good Health Card at Waco Family Medicine, because you can imagine how much money Baylor Scott and White and Providence spends every time somebody who's off the streets treats their ER as their primary care physician.
Exactly, and a lot of people do.
They go in for a headache, and $1,600 later, they're given 3 Advil. You know, so it's just it's a challenge. A lot of people, I don't think, realize how much our community spends on an individual who's homeless. The city of Waco says it's about $40,000 a person that our community spends when somebody is on the streets. You can, from the sheriff's department, Waco PD, the hospital situation I just talked about. There was a study in 2017 done by the National Alliance to End Homelessness that said we could cut that number in half with permanent and supportive housing, the cost to our community. Because you still have mental health issues that they need treatment for. And so there's a lot of things that still cost money, but this development should save our city significant dollars. You know, for a long time, a lot of people don't know this. In 2005, the city of Waco started doing what's called the point in time count. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
We do it every January, February. We go out into the city. We count folks who are unhoused. We count the folks who are housed in shelters. And around 2005, we had about 630, 650, somewhere in that number, of chronically homeless folks in our city. And now we hover around 200. So we have seen, through a collaborative effort in our city, that number decreased by 60%.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and a lot of people think, I spoke with a gentleman at Stalker Fields the other day, and he said, John, you think this is really going to, you know, we have so many homeless folks, is this really going to make a dent? And I said, I won't say his name. I said, well, how many folks do you think are on our streets? And he said, oh, I don't know, thousands. And I was like,
oh, really?
Would it, you know, would you be surprised if I told you if it was around 200? And he's like, no way. No way. I was like, yeah. So when we think of a housing development that has 346 units, it provides a place for every single person in our community who's homeless right now, a place if they so choose. There's going to be people that just choose to not be.
There's that.
Right.
Yeah, there's always going to be those.
There's going to be that. But
those folks, yeah.
to have a development in our city where every person who wants to not be homeless has a way for that to happen, I think is significant.
This is a little bit off. You mentioned folks that are unhoused. I think about young people that are kind of couch surfing. I know Mission Waco's got programs for kiddos. You want to talk about that?
We do. We've got some after-school programs that are open to kids from all walks of life. You know, if you're 18, we have a lot of people in that 18 to 25, 24-year-old category. And a lot of that is just getting their feet back up underneath them. A lot of those folks have lost significant family in their life for whatever reason. And so trying to just get them back up on their feet, maybe get them an ID because they've lost it, or a birth certificate. You know, if there's mental health issues, it's working to get diagnosed and to get on medication. But then a lot of it is just job training and teaching those soft skills. We were talking before we aired about having folks on your show that teach etiquette. You know, that's a huge deal. Those soft skills of how to present yourself in an interview. I do lots of interviews at Mission Waco, and I have young people come in, and sometimes I just go, I just wish you had somebody in your life that could teach you how to talk because you're just not presenting well. So it's teaching those soft skills, helping people get a resume. We see a lot of people that come through who are young that we put in our Street Sweep program. So it's an employment program. That's a job force program, workforce development program, where they come and they can have a job up to 3 to 5 months. And then they have a reference from us. They have a
shown
resume.
the ability to be
they've got
employed
some money in their bank account now.
Yeah.
And then we've got a number of employers in town that we work with that they're willing to take our folks because we vouch for them.
Right.
And so, we hope that homelessness as it exists today is short. And it's just a blip in time, especially for our younger folks. If they're younger than 18, that's when we partner with folks like the Cove, with Tim Packer, Dr. Packer.
Right. There are other agencies that are really focused on.
And they're much more equipped. Methodist Children's Home. I mean, there's a lot of folks that do the under 18 so somebody who's under 18 can't stay at our shelter. And so that's when we call our folks like the Cove and say, hey, what are the resources available for this individual and how can we help them? So most of the people that come to us, though, are over 18. Yeah.
I think that program you were talking, though, about the street sweep, I was talking to Carol Ferguson with Keep Waco Beautiful.
That's right.
And your name came up.
Yeah, I think we've had probably 50 or so folks that have come through that program, which for I think 3 years was entirely funded by First Baptist Church.
Really?
Yeah, they Pastor Matt and Josh came to us and said, "Hey, we've got this issue with all these people parking in our parking lots. The trash that's left.
Going to the silos.
Yeah, they just can't keep up." And so the city said, "Hey, we've got to clean this up a little bit better."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, we could pay a company to come do it, but what would it look like to hire Mission Waco folks to do this?" And it's a win-win. And so they funded it, and it's an expensive program because your biggest expense is the salary, is the paying employees.
Well, she says they're well paid. I know it.
They're well paid,
That's
and they
good.
do a great job. And it's been fun to see people, especially the younger folks, get really energized by that. And then placed somewhere else because it's not permanent.
Right.
But to get them, because they can make better money, we just got to get them to a place where they've got a little bit of job history. They've got their feet underneath them. They've got us as a reference, and then it's the world's their oyster, as they say. They can go off, and there's a couple guys that have gone to make more money than I do. It's pretty amazing. So it's been fun to watch how God can use just a simple workforce development program to really change somebody's life.
You mentioned the church. Back to Creekside, you've been partnered. I know First Woodway, in fact, is helping with the building of one of these structures, right?
Yeah, we've had a tremendous amount of church support. It's been it's not surprising because
it's kind of, we're told as Christians to do that.
That's what we're supposed to do, right?
We're supposed to do that.
So it's been fun to see churches, and we just had a church of 90 people, Primera, commit to purchasing a home for us.
Wow.
And, so you have a small church, and then you have larger churches like Highland. Highland was I think the first church to come in. I think we didn't even have designs for homes yet.
Yeah.
It was so early on in the process. And Pastor John said, we're going to do 3 homes at $50,000 a piece.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess this is happening. But having them, and then Mosaic was a church that last summer, a church of a couple hundred people, they stepped up and did a matching. It was a fun little way to raise money. The church said, out of our budget, we're going to commit $50,000 for a home. And we challenged the church congregation over the course of a summer to raise the other $50,000. And I told them they were crazy. I was like, there's no way your church is going to be able to raise that kind of money in 2 months. And 6 weeks in, the pastors called me, Pastor Slim, Pastor Malcolm, and they said, John, we've got funds for both homes.
Oh, ye
already
of
raised.
little
Ye
faith.
of little faith. I was like, you're right. Absolutely. I'll repent later. But yeah, so it's having churches like that have stepped up, that have really caught the vision, because it's not just about giving money, it's about building relationships. And so it's going to be fun to see, a group from First Woodway or Mosaic or Highland really adopt a home, because it's not just about funding it.
Right.
I want people in their church to be involved. And so when somebody moves out and somebody else is moving back in, we want to bless them with the sheets and the towels and the pillows and the
Right,
artwork.
all the things you need for a nice place to live.
And then we want that church to come and provide those things for the next resident that's going to be there. So we've had a lot of church buy-in, and it's been fun to see that happen.
Well, of course, you've got a great community support, and you have wonderful fundraisers throughout the year. The style show I was able to be involved with.
That's right. That's
last year. Amy Gaston, who's just delightful.
She's amazing.
She is amazing, and so I presume that's coming up, and you have regular things to interact with the community.
We do. We don't really have an event for Creekside per se. I think we probably will in the future.
Yeah.
Right now, it's more grassroots, one-on-one fundraising efforts. We still have about $4 million left to raise. We lost a big government grant that kind of hit us pretty hard. It was about $1.5 million that we don't have access to anymore. And so we're rapidly trying to raise that get across the finish line so that we can go build everything that we need to build by the end of this year.
Okay, so things are under construction now.
That's right. So we've got...
Somebody could drive by and say, oh, this is where it's happening.
If you drive by, you'll see all kinds of bulldozers and cranes and mounds of dirt, especially with all this rain. It's basically just a mud pit out there.
All right.
I got stuck. I've got a four-wheel drive truck, and I got stuck out there last week because of all the rain. But yeah, so we're about a few weeks away from all of the wastewater and water being complete, both off-site and on-site. Bowen Electric will come in with Encore, and they'll do on-site electrical. And as soon as they're done, it takes a few months or a couple months, we'll put roads in, and simultaneously we'll be putting in pads for the homes. We've got the bathroom and the kitchen that should be built by the end of July. So those community amenities will be finished. Right now you can see those. They're framed up, have a roof on, and so it's exciting to actually see something above ground take shape.
Yeah. And so that phase one is going to mean how many?
35 affordable units, 3940 homes total, but that includes those missionals that own their own home.
Okay.
So we're building 35 affordable units, and the plan is to be done by December.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little break. When we come back, though, I want to talk more about you, John, and I want to hear about your time in Nepal.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, stay with us. We'll be right back. Today's show is brought to you by Main Event Entertainment Center. They've got it all. They've got bowling, virtual reality, laser tag, billiards, shuffleboard, and more. And if you mention my name, Ann Harder, when you're booking, you get double arcade play free. And if you book by July 24th, your guest of honor will play free. For your next main event, it's Main Event, 2420 Creekview Drive in Waco, right next to the Cinemark Theaters.
If I've learned anything in the last year, it's that to show up as my best, I need to make intentional choices. And that goes back to the absolute basics. Number one, it's I have to move. And number two, to stay hydrated.
I have been using molecular hydrogen from Water and Wellness to support my health and well-being. It helps with energy, recovery, liver health, and more. The hydrogen has been a game-changing addition to my own wellness routine. The tablets dissolve into my water and deliver powerful minerals to help my body feel its best all day long.
Knock, knock. Anybody home? It's Dusty. Augustine, is this you? It's really off the grid. Nobody knows this is back here. They can get down there and get to water where it's cooler. They can bathe, wash clothes. Knock, knock. John, are you home? John, it's Dusty. We have a large number of people that are just sleeping outside. Our folks don't have anywhere to go that need a house. There's not enough housing. The homeless population that we service, almost 100%, they just came out of broken families, bad families, just a lot of trauma in their life that has led them to where they are today. All of these people they're just like you and me and anybody else. There just wasn't anybody there to pick them up when they were at a bad spot in their life.
We really think that one of the single leading causes of homelessness is the profound, catastrophic loss of family. Oftentimes people think that it's drugs and alcohol, but those are really just the medication. We were fundamentally designed for human-to-human interaction, to live in community, to support one another. When you become isolated, you remove those elements out of your life.
So the homeless situation in Waco is pretty unique to a city of our size. Right now, we've got about 250 homeless in Waco from our most recent study in 2023. That's up about 25% from where we were in 2022, which tells us that it is a growing number, faster than we would like for it to be.
Today, what we're seeing with our homeless friends and trying to get them off the street is there's just no housing. There's no place for them. The demand for housing is too great.
It all started a few years ago when McLennan County and Waco started to see a number of these low-income, low-budget motels start to close down. Homelessness in our community has been a struggle for decades. Between these motels that were closing down and a number of other issues that are affecting homelessness in our community, we decided we can't sit idly by and not do anything about this. As we began to survey models from across the country, we really landed on what we think the most successful model was in this ecosystem of permanent and supportive housing, and that was Community First in Austin, Texas. Community First Village is a master planned neighborhood that provides affordable, permanent housing and supportive community for men and women who are coming out of chronic homelessness. Through design, layout, common areas, community kitchens and gardens, the village is intentionally designed to encourage community. Every step along the way, God continued to affirm both the model in Austin and the steps of progress that we were making here. Creekside Community Village will be a 68-acre master planned community that combines permanent supportive housing with life-giving community engagement. When we're fully built out, we'll have 346 homes on our property, which will have access to the Welcome Home Center, we'll have access to community kitchens, also have access to what we're calling living rooms, places where you can come and watch the Super Bowl and hang out and play pool, play ping pong, work on your resume, take a job training class. Having the ability to create spaces where community is encouraged is vitally important to the success of not just the community overall, but all of the individuals that will be living here. This is called a park model home. There's probably going to be about 50 of these throughout the property. You've got a nice, comfortable place to sit. These are really highly energy efficient, and you've got a full kitchen and a full bath. One of the aspects, one of the ways that we would like to create community is through a term that we call missionals. We are inviting people who aren't formerly homeless to live out in this community. This mixture of those who are not formerly homeless but choose to live with those who are creates an ecosystem of support that will not just allow people to be lifted up off the streets, but it empowers them to stay off the streets permanently.
It's all about community. It's not about housing. The homes all have front porches. The homes all face 5 or 6 other homes that have front porches. So you cannot live there without being part of a community.
This is going to offer them, maybe for the first time in their life, a sense of a wonderful community and a sense of having a true family that will look after them and be able to enjoy life with them.
When all of your time is spent trying to figure out where your next meal is going to come from, where you're going to sleep that night, that just takes up a lot of mental and spiritual energy. When those base needs are met, it frees people up to live the life that God is actually equipping them to live. If there is anything that we ought to be most willing for our resources to go towards, it ought to be our care for our needy neighbors.
Community like Creekside that first approaches individuals with dignity and seeks to provide them not only with permanent housing, but with solutions to the problems that led to their instance of homelessness, but helping them with mental health services, helping them find training and job opportunities, I think is a much better and holistic approach to helping to solve our homelessness issue in the city of Waco.
Good morning and welcome to this momentous occasion. I'm so honored to kick off the groundbreaking for Creekside Community Village. Today represents the culmination of years of praying, of planning, of plotting. Through it all, there was an unwavering and deep focus on our mission to provide the people of Waco this permanent, supportive housing with life-giving community engagement.
The fabric of getting people healthy is community and village, and we are part of that village.
In less than a year, we will have 40 previously unhoused individuals, residents at Creekside.
If one of the leading causes of homelessness is the profound, catastrophic loss of family, housing alone will never solve homelessness for an individual, but community will.
Every project of Mission Waco is an inspiration, and if you can help them financially, please do. We've got great music ahead with Morgan Lee Powers. The Ann Harder Show is brought to you by Main Event Waco.
At Matt Piffle, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mapiful.com and start celebrating your story today.
And we're back with John Calaway. It is so good to have you here on the podcast. This new thing, this Ann Harder Show. You know, I talked many times over at Channel 25, Central Texas Living. You came to, you came back.
Correct.
In 2017.
Correct.
You've got your MDiv at Baylor.
That's right. Went to Truett Seminary. Then was a missions pastor at a church in Austin.
Right.
And I would come up every once in a while to teach a class, guest teach for Jimmy Dorrell.
Yeah. Missions has always been your thing.
It really has. You know, I think that, I came to seminary thinking I wanted to go get a PhD. And God kind of through the seminary process revealed to me that publishing and research was not my forte. And so God began to just continue to draw me back to the local church.
Yeah.
And so that's still where my heart is. Even though I work for a nonprofit, my heart is really with and for the local church. And that's why I feel like I was such a good fit for Mission Waco, because that is our, we're board protected, staff led, but we're people driven. And so, and by people driven, I mean that we're, large in part, volunteer-wise by folks that are from churches, because we're a Christian faith-based organization. And so I would come up and teach a class or two, and Jimmy one time sat me down because he was too cheap to reimburse me for mileage. And so he'd buy me breakfast or lunch at the World Cup Cafe. And so one of those times he said, "Hey, what do you think about coming back and taking over for me at Mission Waco?"
Yeah, he was thinking about
slowing
slowing down a little bit.
I said, "No, I'm good. I've moved to the promised land of Austin, Texas, and put Waco in my rearview mirror." And he said, "Well, at least pray about it." I said, "I really don't want to pray about it." Well, so I get home, my wife, Sarah, we've been married 16 years now. She said, "How was your time with Jimmy?" I said, "Well, he asked me an interesting question." And without batting an eye, she said, "We're moving to Waco, aren't we?" I said, "No."
That's not what I told him.
We're not moving to Waco. Well, 7 months later, we're packing our bags with a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old in tow. And so moved back to Waco. That was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And began about a 3-year succession process that our board had approved and planned, taking over from Jimmy. And, Jimmy's on our Creekside leadership team. So he's still a huge driver for Creekside. And it's been fun having him do what he does best, which is tell stories and raise money. And so 2 critical things with Creekside. And he's probably the best person I know and the most authentic person I know for loving a group of people that we've often forgotten about, or that we tend to have pretty ill-conceived ideas around who they are and how they got to where they are. We often think of homeless folks of just people that are just living off my tax dollars, and if they would just get a job and stop being lazy. So we, with Creekside especially, but we do this already, we want to move people from thinking what's wrong with this person to what's happened to this person.
Right.
And
what got them to this
what
point?
got them to this place. And so housing alone isn't going to solve whatever happened to them. And community is not necessarily going to solve it. But with all the levels of support that wrap around this individual, they can function and they can be thriving members of our society again. And so Creekside is a part of that process of not just getting them off the streets, but keeping them off the streets as well. So when I came back, over the last 8 years, housing has just kind of continued to trend upwards as far as a need and a crisis is concerned in our community.
Yeah, no, Friends for Life is looking into the same kind of
That's
thing, trying to.
And so it's a significant need in our community. And so, 8 years went by, or it was been 6 years at that point, and we all just said, okay, we think it's time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, moved back 8 years, and been married for 16 years. Cohen and Cora,
Yeah, your
are
precious
both
kiddos.
they're both at Hillcrest Elementary.
Right.
So we're big Waco ISD proponents, and love our kids being in the school, and excited about the new Tennyson. And my oldest is going to Tennyson next year. It is amazing.
Wow, the new Waco High. Oh my goodness.
And very much excited about Waco High. So
yeah. Well, it's awesome. Speaking of churches, of course, Jimmy started the church under the bridge, and of course, TxDOT totally remodeled their church for them, and they're back. And
got a brand new
facility.
chapel, as Jimmy likes to say. Yeah.
Do you go to that? I mean, where do you fellowship?
We split our time between Church Under the Bridge and Mosaic that meets at our Meyer Center. And so it's been fun. Mosaic's got a real thriving kids ministry. And so it's been fun for our kids being there. But the folks that we serve, and a lot of our staff are part of Church Under the Bridge. Even though Church Under the Bridge is a separate organization, technically, there's just so much overlap. Like right now, we've got, I think, a group from, I can't remember where they're from. We've got groups every week this summer that are here. A group of 50, I think, is here. They'll either, at some point, most groups arrive on Sunday, and we want them to come to Church Under the Bridge to start or to finish. We have a lot of groups that'll come Tuesday through Sunday or Sunday through Thursday. And so Church Under the Bridge is a critical point of them coming and serving and just being there. It's not really about them doing anything at Church on the Bridge as much as it is just doing church with, quote unquote, the poor, not for the poor, is a critical element of them learning our approach at Mission Waco to helping folks that are in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I got to be a part of Church Under the Bridge. One time I was riding with Bikers for Jesus. We were doing our toy run.
Yeah, that's right.
And dropping off toys. I was doing a story for Channel 25 and ended there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, some of the other things that you're doing there at Mission Waco with the toy store. I need to have you come back, or someone to come back.
I would love to.
As we get closer to Christmas.
Would love to.
talk
We
about that.
we have a toy store. In fact, there is an event that is coming up in July at Harris Creek Baptist. They're hosting a Christmas in July event where the entry fee to watch a Christmas movie is a toy to bring with your family. So we try to raise money throughout the year. It's a pretty expensive toy store, so we collect a lot of toys, but we still have to purchase probably $40,000 or $50,000 worth of toys that we then resell at 20% of their resale value. Because we don't want to be the hero in the kid's story. We want the parents or the grandparents to be the hero. And so we're able to do that when they come and purchase, because they know what their kid wants. They know what the kid is into. And so instead of just driving up and putting, a bunch of toys in the back of your car, half the fun of a parent or a grandparent is choosing the toys that your kids are going to like. Because if they're into Harry Potter or cats, and so, and if it's a boy, what's age appropriate and what's not. And so allowing parents to come shop, because it really is like a store. They come in, they get times to shop. And if you come on the third day at the end of the day versus the first day at the beginning of the day, you have the same options as toys. And so we have to buy a lot of the same toys. And so we set up a shop and they come in, and we have a lot of churches that partner with us that do that. But all throughout the year, we're constantly raising money to try to offset the toys that we don't get donated. So, a lot of my heart for things like that, you had mentioned Nepal earlier, really started with my time overseas.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
So I was with the International Mission Board as a Baptist group,
IMB,
IMB, and I did that for a little over 2 years and worked with a people group called the Sherpa People Group. You've probably heard of them
they
climbing
take
Mount
people
Everest.
up to the mountains. Yeah,
That's right. We started a restaurant there, and then did a lot of training for pastors, and working with a number of other agencies there as well, to do medical clinics, to work with the education department there in districts, the remote districts. And it was really there that I saw, I think, a level of poverty that I had never seen before. And it really shook me to the core. And I think for folks who've traveled internationally and done quote unquote mission work, or just have traveled to lower income areas, you realize how much we've been blessed with here in the States. And why do we have that blessing? Is it just for ourselves so that we can continue to build wealth upon wealth upon wealth? Or is it God's given us wealth to then bless others? And that's what we believe at Mission Waco, which is why I have the greatest job in the world, is because I get to meet people and help connect their resource to folks that don't have resource, and doing it in an empowering way, not a paternalistic way, where both parties are lifted up, and they get to see God in that process, is just a fun job. So seeing that, experiencing that in Nepal, coming back here, and through twists and turns, getting back to my local church calling, I really want to mobilize people to be on mission with God. And so that's the calling of my life. And so, sitting down and talking with small groups or Sunday school classes at churches, I just love to do that, because it starts with a conversation with somebody becoming more aware of what the levels of poverty are in our city. Because a lot of people don't realize that Waco has twice the severity of poverty than the average city in Texas.
Why is that?
We could spend 4 more podcast episodes talking about why I think that is. In short, we have a history of poverty in our city, and we just continue to not have things that are holistically and moving people out of poverty, effective programs at the scale we need.
Right, it's the scale.
It's the scale, and then
because there are.
Well, and then it's part of the challenge is housing. When you can't keep up, if you're, let's say you're making $12 an hour or $11 an hour, which is, the minimum wage is still $7.25,
right?
Or $7.50 an hour.
It's not even there,
And imagine you're spending $1,100 a month at the Uptown Motel to pay rent. Think about how much money you have to make. If we have I think 40% of Wacoans are technically experiencing a housing crisis, which means that they don't make more than a third of what they need to pay for rent. So you have to make 3 times, usually to qualify for an apartment, you've got to make 3 times what the lease is. And that's really becoming really, really difficult for folks in our city if you're spending at least $1,000 a month on a place to live. And you can see there's not much margin left for you to live off of. And so a lot of folks, especially that are struggling with homelessness, it's going to be really difficult for them, especially if they've got disabilities, to really get above that threshold. And so it kind of goes back to Creekside. That's why we're doing this. Is imagine you go from $1,100 a month at Uptown Motel to, even if it's $500 a month. Immediately overnight,
that's a raise.
You've got $600 in your pocket.
Right.
And so that's how, when you remove that barrier,
yeah,
it's pretty amazing how quickly somebody can be back into society contributing again, just from that one housing issue and meeting that need alone.
Yeah. You mentioned food, and of course we've seen with inflation, the cost of going to the grocery store. Jubilee Market, wonderful idea, but it's...
Well, a lot of the needs have significantly changed in our community. 2017, our neighborhood was absolutely a food desert.
Right.
Well, in 2020, or since 2017, we had Poco Loco go in just down the street, a meat market on Waco Drive go in. Something happened in 2020 with our food distribution pantries, like Bob with Shepherd's Heart. A lot of those went mobile. because they had to.
Right, they had to.
And so the challenge with that is it's hard to drive, usually once a week I drive past Waco Family Medicine, their parking lot. I live just down the street.
Yeah, right.
And they've got hundreds of cars picking up free food. It's hard to drive past that to go spend money at the Jubilee Food Market. And so I think all of those things affected whether or not Jubilee really needed to exist.
Okay. And you just have to reevaluate things.
And so, yeah, we, at Mission Waco, every year we reevaluate every single program that we do. And we have to be asking, okay, why did we set out to do this? Are we still meeting the need? And is it still a need? We used to have a big back to school, kind of like the toy store, but it was for supplies.
School supplies.
Pencils and crayons and stuff.
Right.
Well, about 5 years ago, everybody started doing free
And then the
backpacks, all these
that.
things. And so we had to sit back and go, okay, this doesn't cost Mission Waco any money. Okay, so we don't make every decision based on, it's not always a financial decision.
Right.
It really needs to come from is this a need still? And if not, then where can we redeploy resources to meet a different need or meet it in a different way?
Right.
And so we stopped doing the school supplies store because it wasn't a need anymore.
No.
And so for Jubilee Food Market, that's what we settled on is this is not as significant as a need as it once was. Okay, so where can we redeploy resources? And so that's what our board is figuring out now. We don't have plans for the grocery store yet. We don't know what it's going to be and what it's going to do and if we'll do something out of it or we'll lease it to somebody. We've got an event coming up next week where I'll sit with a lot of community members and say, hey, what do you think the needs are in our neighborhood? Because everything we do is out of this grassroots, not just what we think we should do, but we ask the community, what do you think we need to do with this space? And then we get to have the fun wrestling of, okay, we take all this input and then now we have to translate that into a budget and a program or whatever it is. So we don't quite know what we're going to do with it yet, but God knows. And so we're just leaning into our community to ask them, hey, what do you want us to do with this space?
Well, constantly being creative with the resources that you have. It's not a failure.
Yeah.
It just is kind of a retooling of this.
Right.
You're doing a podcast?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So It Takes a Village with Creekside Community Village is what the name of the podcast is. Similar to this, it's trying to get people, key stakeholders, folks in the community to come in and just share about it. As we both know, live TV, it's not often watched as much anymore. I know with my family, every night, we've got soccer, volleyball, baseball.
Busy.
It's busy. And so a podcast is a great way for people in an extended amount of time to hear something really in depth. And we believe that, the challenge with Creekside is reframing a lot of myths of homelessness and helping people redefine what homelessness is. And so this podcast is about Creekside. It's about poverty. It's about homelessness. We had 2 pastors from Mosaic just on last week to talk about why in the world would their church give $100,000 to buy 2 homes out at Creekside. So you get to hear their heart and a little bit of the heart of their church. We had one episode, we had 3 teenagers and their youth group leader that were in town from Connecticut. That church, they raised enough for 3 homes at $50,000 a piece. Really? So they raised $150,000 from Connecticut.
What was the connection? How did you?
I don't really know. They came down. They do these kinds of trips every year, and so they wanted to come to Waco. I think they just Googled missions, and Mission Waco popped up, and they saw Creekside, and they said, we want to know more about this. So they flew down just to visit, take a tour, and they got excited about it. Their leadership got excited about it, so they raised the money, and they came home, back, and they brought over 100 teenagers, and they built 3 homes. They built those 3 that they raised money for. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
Do you have pictures for that?
Maybe.
Okay.
I know I've got pictures that are like in the middle of the build.
Okay, well send me what you have.
But yeah, so
I
it's
want folks to be able to see
having
what
those
you're doing.
teenagers on there to talk about why in the world would they give up their spring break
Oh.
to come here to build a home. It's just it's fascinating. And so having unique guests like that, where it's just they're real people talking about why they love the project and why they're involved. You know, in the future we're going to have obviously residents that are living out at Creekside come on and be a part of the podcast as well. You know, in fact, my hope is that they become the hosts. And so it's not me hosting the show anymore. It's somebody who's living out at Creekside. Yeah. We rotate who's doing the interviews. And so we got some creative ideas, but really it's just a way to help people understand what the project is.
Mm-hmm. So where can folks learn more? I mean, I presume you always need volunteers. You
Sure.
always need contributions.
Well, right now we're focused on fundraising. Mm-hmm. Again, we need $4 million.
Yeah, well, there's that. Okay.
There's that. And, as we move folks out onto the property, there will be significant volunteer opportunities. Yeah. We're not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. It's hard to, trust a volunteer to come out and put pipes underneath the ground or lay down electrical.
Let's not do
We're going to pay the professionals to do that.
Let Habitat for Humanity worry about that with her.
So come January of 26, we'll have a significant need for volunteers. But you can go to our website, creeksidewaco.org. You can also go to just missionwaco.org and find Creekside that way. The podcast you can download from everywhere you download podcasts. But the website, It Takes a Village at Creekside Community Village. Okay. That's the name of the podcast.
Oh, my goodness. It is so awesome to talk to you, John.
Well, glad to talk to you. I can't thank you enough for having me on. I appreciate it.
I've just you've been a joy for me to even say I know you, over the years, all that you've done. Of course, Jimmy and the legacy that he leaves.
That's right.
That he leaves with, truly walking the talk. And that's what you and your family doing as well, John. And it's just awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Escape into fitness with the Schwinn IC4 bike, providing a premium, heart-pumping indoor cycling experience that combines digital connectivity with superior Schwinn quality. The IC4's smooth, quiet ride features magnetic resistance with 100 micro-adjustable resistance levels. Escape the everyday with the Schwinn IC4 bike, your ticket to a life well lived.
Want to tell you about a wonderful event tomorrow evening at Marie's Wine Bistro on Austin Avenue. From 5:30 to 8:30, you can meet the winemaker of Juniper Cove Winery. Her name is Ann Chastain, and you can enjoy a delicious wine tasting. Tickets are $30. We've got more ahead. Don't go away.
I just got my Colgate Advanced LED Whitening Treatment in the mail, and I am very excited to have dramatically whiter teeth in just 10 days. My teeth are going to be 6 shades whiter. The treatment is enamel safe and hassle-free. It's even designed for my sensitive teeth. Let's open it up. Inside we have the blue light whitening device. A charger for after each treatment as well. There's a full 10-day supply, and it looks easy to apply. Order yours today at shop.colgate.com.
He was an old school gentleman, loved the Lord and held the door. I was a heart blowing in the wind. Yeah, he swore I was what he was praying for. We were Sunday morning song, a picture painted in stained glass light, my sanctuary in the storm. Oh, I figured it was different this time, but I was looking for an honest man. He was looking for the right left hand to settle down at 22, watch him preach from the front pew. I just wanted to have a good time, but he set his standards a little too high. I was looking for the love of my life, but he was looking for a pastor's wife. chase, the rest can't wait. Would've made it work if he wanted me to. Yeah, but that would take a different kind of faith. And I was looking for an honest man. He was looking for the right left hand to settle down at 22. Watch him preach from the front pew. I just wanted to have a good time, but he said his standards a little too high. I was looking for the love of my life, but he was looking for a pastor's wife. Oh, and maybe I should thank him, 'cause he really did me a favor. The Lord's got better plans for me than to be a good homemaker. Or maybe not. But I was just looking for an honest man. He was looking for the right left hand to settle down at 22. Watch him preach from the front pew. I just wanted to have a good time, but he said his standards a little too high. I was looking for the love of my life, but he was looking for a pastor's wife. She was a wild, free spirit, stained darker than glass. He was sweet as wildflowers layered in the grass. They were back roads spinning tires deeper in mud. I'll bet he never thought that he'd be in love with a brown-eyed girl in a blue-tone dress with a mean addiction to cigarettes. She'd run so far trying not to get tied down, while he was laying foundation, waiting on her, building up the bridges she had already burned. He knew he wanted to love her, but didn't know how. And he'd been known to thump a Bible, and she'd been known to fight him. But love is patient, and love is kind in a little while. He said she had an accent, how about that? It'd been a while since she'd really laughed. With him she felt 16 again. Windows down in an old Lincoln. Just a brown-eyed girl in a blue-tone dress with a mean addiction to cigarettes. She'd run so far trying not to get tied down, while he was laying foundation, waiting on her, building up the bridges she had already burned. He knew he wanted to love her, but didn't know how. And he'd been known to thump a Bible, and she'd been known to fight him. But love is patient, and love is kind in a little while. And it's a beautiful battle to wait for someone. And he knew that girl wouldn't be wild for long. Now she's a brown-eyed girl in a blue-tone dress, up there singing in her Sunday best. She'd run so far, she was bound to get tired out, while he was laying foundation, waiting on her, building up the bridges she had already burned. He always had some faith she'd settle down. Now he's up there preaching the Bible. She's on the front row grinning wide, 'cause love is patient and love is kind in a little while. 'Cause love is patient and he was kind and she was wild.
Join me tomorrow when we'll be treated to some delightful music and hear about its healing effects with Waco violinist Sue Jacobson and Jocelyn Williams on flute. We'll see you then.